The Weltkrieg of 1914 initiated a dark era for Greece. After political struggles between the king and the prime minister, the king was forced into exile as the country joined the side of Serbia and the Entente. Only a year later, in 1918, Athens fell to Bulgarian and Austrian forces, who at the end of the whole World War forced us to sign the humiliating Treaty of Salonika. Almost all our gains in the two Balkan Wars were reverted, with the whole of southern Macedonia being ceded to Bulgaria, the Aegean islands being occupied by the Ottomans, and Crete becoming a German dominion. But the territorial loss wasn't everything. The two great powers of the Weltkrieg also imposed massive war debts on our nation, which has led to almost half our economy being owned by foreign creditors and banks. After this treaty and the end of the war, our second king would also get exiled and the Second Hellenic Republic was formed, but with political instability and years of failed governments, it wouldn't last long until General Georgios Kondylis would, with the support of the military, coup the republic and establish a regency. But despite restoring the monarchy, no monarch was allowed to return from exile, as Kondylis consolidated power as a regent for life. And this is where we find ourselves today. Kondylis has stabilized Greece and is even slowly preparing our nation for the inevitable wars of reconquest. But he's growing old, and the 3rd of February, the fierce military commander suffered a heart attack and died, putting in motion huge political changes. With no dedicated heir, the centrist Prime Minister Papandreou declared a republic in agreement with the Republican parties that control the legislative. But despite being a Republican himself, with stability plummeting and chaos spreading, he announced that the long-anticipated referendum on the status of the Greek monarchy would be held as soon as possible. In order not to plunge the country into a civil war, Papandreou would ensure that the referendum occurred as fair and democratic as possible, allowing the monarchists to campaign just like the syndicalists. Despite calls to ban monarchist lobbying, he also didn't do anything about it, and when some Republican voices called on him to rig the election, he dismissed them. As the referendum arrived closer, the two options of republic or monarchy looked to be neck in neck, but one event would change the whole outcome. A huge economic crash in Germany, one which quickly spread throughout Europe and the whole world, impacting us hugely due to our economy's connection with the German and Austrians. And it didn't only impact our industries, but also our important agricultural exports, causing huge discontent among farmers. Now, the interim government of Papandreou did start to address the crisis, but it will take months for us to take us out of it. And even more worryingly for the Republican government was that the economic crash greatly mobilized the people in support of the monarchy, as nostalgia for its stability peaked. So, as the referendum arrived and the votes had been counted, it was announced to be a monarchist victory, with the royal family returning from exile only days later. A clear defeat for Papandreou and his Republican allies, who will be remembered as a simple interim government before the restoration of the monarchy, and the government residing during one of Greece's darkest times. But there is one positive thing they will be remembered for: reuniting Crete into the fatherland. Maybe the only good thing that came from the Berlin stock market crash, as we could buy back the island from the Germans who needed the money. But while the monarchy has now been restored, one question remains: which monarch should be the king? Georgios, the heir of the exiled king from 1917, or Alexandros, crowned in 1917? While most of the moderates support Alexandros, with the majority of the people only having bad memories from him and the war with the Central Powers that he reigned during, the true lineage was chosen and King Georgios II was crowned as monarch of all Greeks. Looking to create a strong autocratic monarchy along German lines, he and the new parliament in his support would immediately begin planning to grant more power to the king. But with the economic crash still running rampant, despite attempts to at least solve the agricultural crisis, most of the government's work had to be put on the economy. And we started by tackling the biggest issue, that of the German and Austrian industries and investments. There are two options: either subsidize them and keep relations with Germany and Austria friendly, or fully seize them. Fearing the repercussions of breaking the Treaty of Saloniki, we were forced to subsidize their investors, greatly indebting our nation, but at least getting rid of the economic consequences of foreign-owned industries. With us already being so much in debt, we continued further down the dangerous path, nationalizing bankrupt businesses to keep our population employed and taking out further loans to fund further employment programs. For example, putting them to work on constructing new railways. During these reforms, King Georgios had initiated his political plans and a huge purge of republicans in power had taken place to ensure the return of stability. It ended with a complete change of government as the king had managed to introduce significant power for himself, enough to single-handedly guide parliament. With this new government and power, the economic recovery reforms gained new momentum. Gathering industrialists, a new agency was formed, the Board of Industry. One of the first and most substantial things it introduced was a land reform, opening up new ground for factory construction. Two other reforms headed by the monarchical government itself was the destruction of unionism, which has for far too long destabilized our nation and hindered our industrial progress. And this crackdown allows us to find our very own economic path, one of balance between private and government industries, and a path that has brought with it a full recovery from the Black Monday crash. Our economy is still quite weak, of course, but with it stabilized, we can expect it to grow good in the future, and it allows us to focus on other matters than only economy. But before any of these government reforms could start, our focus shifted completely, as Serbia invited us to a congress in Belgrade, together with Romania, where our three nations signed a new formal alliance, the Belgrade Pact. And who it's aimed against is clear, the Bulgarians. They've stolen land from all our three countries, and with the nation still affected by Black Monday, just like its protectors in the former Central Power, this could be the best opportunity to begin the Fourth Balkan War. However, while support for the war is strong, our army isn't. We haven't even fielded all our current divisions. So we implemented huge war preparations, upping our military conscription to extensive conscription. We also had the time to begin fortifying Thessaloniki, but not enough to finish it, as Serbia had sent an ultimatum to Bulgaria, starting the Fourth Balkan War. Despite being a 3 against 1, our combined army sizes are extremely similar, and with our own 10 divisions we don't see many offensive options. As the Bulgarians started attacking Thessaloniki, we did however try a small offensive into Florina, but it quickly became unfeasible, and we instead put our whole focus on defending against the Bulgarian attack. They seemed to have the upper hand for quite some time, but with our fortifications coming into place after 30 days and with one division reinforcing from the main front we could hold. So as our homeland stands secure, we can look to liberate our lost territories. Our High Command have already started discussing possible reforms in the armed forces, and we are training up 3 more divisions. But our first victory wouldn't be scored on the ground, but on the seas. 2 of our submarines had spotted the whole Bulgarian main fleet, which we engaged. With a far stronger navy and naval tradition, 8 Bulgarian destroyers were sunk, and finding the rest that had fled only hours later, the pride of the Bulgarian fleet was sent to the bottom of the sea. Some weeks after this, with our 3 divisions deployed and several more military factories opened, we were ready to retry an offensive. And this time we saw success, attacking from both our fronts, and utilizing a small gap in the Bulgarian front line we could connect up our 2 fronts. Following this up, we captured Florina and conducted skirmishes quite deep into Macedonia from the city, but due to bad supply we would eventually have to retreat. Instead, we put our forces back on the Thessaloniki area, where we started an offensive north. This was about at the same time as Romanian and Serbian forces had launched a significant offensive into Bulgaria, reaching as far as the outskirts of Sofia. Thus, with the Bulgarian High Command distracted, our offensive saw huge successes, as after breaking through we could encircle 2 divisions in southern Macedonia and simultaneously continue to the east, where we encircled another 2. At the same time as we conducted this offensive, our allies had managed to capture Sofia and also cut the country in 2, but the stubborn Bulgarians still didn't surrender, and we had to continue cutting them in 3 and encircling even more divisions. So eventually, after dealing over 200,000 casualties altogether to the Bulgarians, their government capitulated and agreed to our demands of a return to post-Second Balkan War borders. Except that the Ottomans own Western Thrace, as the Bulgarians had been forced to cede it before. Immediately after the end of the war, the Balkan Pact was dissolved and we went on to celebrate our victories alone. Now during the war wasn't the only thing that had happened. Closely connected to it was the fact that our army had annexed northern Epirus from Albania after rumors of them joining the Bulgarians. Much less connected was that our king had continued strengthening his power as monarch, taking the role as divine mediator. Together with the parliament of monarchists, substantial reforms were introduced as well. Mostly the destruction of the secular republican order by restoring faith and sponsoring church schools. And so, together with all the other reforms conducted, a moral Christian Greece has been built up, with almost all its territories restored. That is, until you look to our ancient glories. During the ancient eras, Greece was always the center point of empires, from the Macedonian to the Roman. It is time to look back at this past and start working to restore our glory. Put simply, we will see the rebirth of a nation, the rebirth of the empire of the Romans. But as a small nation with our first target being the Ottomans, we have a lot to work on before we can even think of achieving this dream. Thankfully, our upped conscription has already seen its benefits, and by introducing further warrior culture and looking to create a new Komnenian army, we won't run out of manpower ever again. But war is so much more than simply men fighting men. It's an art as well, and we need to see that this art permeates throughout our whole society. So we switched to a war economy and began the process of reforming our armed forces, equipping every division with artillery and engineering companies. In accordance with this, we favor superior firepower as our military doctrine, mostly by increasing artillery research. While doing this and starting to train 10 more divisions, excellent news arrived from the Middle East. A rebellion had started against the Ottomans in Hejaz, something which quickly escalated to the Cairo Axis declaring war on the Ottomans together with Iran on the other side. And so, with the Ottomans under siege in the Middle East, this is our time to get our vengeance and begin the project of restoring the Roman Empire. It is time to retake Constantinople.
Μέσα στις μάχες στη φωτιά πέφτει σαν το λεοντάρι το κάθε Ελληνόπουλο θα αυτή σκλαρή να πάρει γι' αυτό κι εμείς με μια καρδιά πρέπει να ενωθούμε και την πατρίδα μας παιδιά να υπερασπιστούμε. Ακούστε το κανόνι πως άναψε κι αυτό και καίει είναι η φωνή που κλαίει και εκδίκηση ζητά εμπρός λοιπόν.
After the Cairo Pact had destroyed the Ottoman Middle Eastern forces, and with us on our way to encircle their whole Western army, the Ottoman army fully collapsed, and we stand as the victor in the war, with all of Anatolia under our control and the Ottoman Empire gone from the earth. And with this, what many thought was impossible has occurred. The purple phoenix has risen from its ashes. The Byzantine Empire is back, and its flag has been hoisted over our new capital, Constantinople. But every single historian out there can tell you that we aren't even close to restoring the Byzantine Empire at its height. But with the integration of the Ottoman states, our industry has seen an astronomical rise, and thanks to this, we will be able to deploy far more divisions. We are already on our way to train 12. There is no need to wait for these though, we already have 24 divisions ready to continue our conquest. And we will strike against our weakest target and former enemy of our enemy, the Cairo Pact. Attacking them when they didn't expect, we could capture the first border towns without any battles. We could even reach Aleppo, an important regional supply hub, after which we met the first real Syrian and Egyptian forces. After the line had consolidated south of the Euphrates River, we started the first major battle, attempting to break through on 2 locations. We only achieved the victory on one side though, but this was enough to enter Damascus and after several more battles encircle the main Cairo Pact defenses in Homs, destroying them all in the process. With almost all Syrian cities now captured, their government capitulated and we soon found ourselves at the doorstep into Egypt, the main target. Outmaneuvering their army, we could cross the Suez Canal for free, and after securing the Sinai, we used this crossing to enter Cairo. From here a difficult battle started. One of our divisions were even encircled at one point, but by always advancing, we eventually captured Alexandria, restoring the legacy of Alexander the Great, and allowing us to begin the process of marching south along the Nile River. After many days and a lot of attrition and plenty of battles, we reached Port Sudan, and with the small army that Egypt had left encircled, the Egyptian government and all its allies capitulated. In the peace deal we annexed all the Syrian and Egyptian territories, but to not overextend ourselves already, we established puppet governments in Libya and Hejaz. So with the African campaign over, we can turn back to Europe and our next target in the Balkans north of us, starting with Serbia and their Bulgarian puppet. Thanks to us having deployed 24 divisions during the Egyptian war, we are about equally strong as the two nations together. So we declared war and launched an offensive into Burgas, but unexpectedly failed to break through. It turns out they had fortified our front, making the first breakthrough far harder. Thankfully we have a secret backup plan, a marine division, and together with 4 infantry we landed without bloodshed in Varna, where we quickly established a safe beachhead, allowing another 7 divisions to be sent in. As this part of the front stabilized, we started waiting for another secret division template. During this time the Bulgarians tried several offensives in vain, only inflicting casualties on themselves. And the secret division later deployed these 4 mechanized divisions. Using them and other reinforcements of infantry to the naval invasion, we could capture Pleven and break through their defenses, allowing us to reach all the way to Serbian territories and the outskirts of Sofia. But since our mechanized divisions were worse than we had expected, we couldn't capture the capital. Instead we returned to the east, where with one last secret weapon, a brand new Cas fighter, we encircled Burgas by attacking from 2 sides, uniting our 2 fronts and taking over an important city in the process. Using the same formula in Plovdiv, we encircled even more divisions, also leaving only Sofia left. With our mechanized now a lot more used to battles, the capital city was easily captured, leading to all the Bulgarian forces capitulating and leaving only Serbia left. And with us having about double their army size, our forces could easily break through in the north, encircle Belgrade and capture it. The only issue started arriving when we were having to capture Montenegro and the Macedonian mountains. Still, by dividing them in 2 and concentrating our forces in an attack towards Skopje, we eventually reached the city and capitulated the Serbians. And so, 2 of our targets in the Balkans have been destroyed. 3 if you count Albania, who we could take over in the matter of a few days. Which leaves only Illyria, a puppet of the Austrian Empire. While you might think we are crazy attacking the Austrians, with them having been involved in the World War, which has been raging for quite some time, and the Ukrainian war for even longer, they've already lost over half their empire. So we will swoop in and put the last nail in the coffin for the Donau-Adria Bund. As we declared war, our mechanized found a gap in the front line day 1, allowing us to drive deep into Illyria, meeting no resistance at all. Soon enough we reached the Adriatic Sea, encircling some defenses in the south, and additionally, since we had split up the 4 divisions, Zagreb fell as well. And this, together with syndicalist advances into Ljubljana, led to the capitulation of Illyria. We immediately sent our mechanized to help out the Ukrainians in their conquest of Austria, but we couldn't help much, because as we arrived, Graz fell and the Austrian Empire collapsed. In the peace deal, even though we hadn't participated for a long time, we got everything we wanted. All territory up to Zagreb. And with this we are close to done with restoring the Byzantine Empire. There only remains one thing: reclaiming Rome and the Italian peninsula from the syndicalists and esoteric legion in Sicily. Thankfully though, we won't be alone against the Third Internationale, as it is time to join a faction. And what better alliance to join than the old friends of Georgios, and the reason his dad got exiled so long ago, the Reichspakt. Together, the Empire of the Baltic Sea and the Empire of the Mediterranean Sea will destroy the syndicalists' threat. Let the final battle begin.